Imagine a winter morning in a downtown office tower. The backup power system flickers a warning, elevator fault codes start stacking, and tenants begin reporting intermittent outages. But the alerts live in 3 separate vendor portals. No one correlates timestamps, and by the time teams piece the problem together, the building is dark on multiple floors. That cascade costs days of productivity and a big chunk of trust.
Welcome to Built, Wired, and Secured. I'm Alex Morgan. In today's episode, we're discussing From Sensors to Signal, unlocking building telemetry for resilience and security, what it is, why it matters, and what decision makers need to know to avoid costly mistakes. Joining me today is Michael Harrington as we break down real-world lessons, common challenges, and practical takeaways you can apply immediately. Let's dive in. First, some context. When we say building telemetry, we mean the streams of operational signals that systems emit, access control logs and badge events, HVAC temperatures and set point changes, UPS and power quality alarms, elevator fault codes, smoke and fire panel statuses, water leak sensors, and even edge device heartbeats. Individually, those feeds are useful. Together, they can tell a much larger story about resilience and security. Why should operations and security teams care? Because correlated telemetry shortens troubleshooting, surfaces early warning signs, and gives a factual timeline for incidents instead of finger pointing. Michael, you run operations in large commercial portfolios. Why does telemetry so often end up fragmented? And what are the trade-offs teams are making when they accept those silos?
There are 3 common reasons. First, vendor stacks. Contractors and vendors deliver systems with their own portals, and there's no standard ingestion path. Second, organizational boundaries. Facilities own HVAC. IT owns networked sensors. Security owns access control. Nobody owns the telemetry as a product. Third, budget and timeline pressures push teams to defer integration work. From an operational standpoint, that leaves you blind to cross-system cascades. What breaks if this goes down? If you can't answer that quickly, you won't prioritize the right fixes.
There are also hard trade-offs around visibility versus privacy and noise. How do you balance that so you don't create more work than value?
Start with intent. Ask who needs this data and for what purpose. Tenant access logs may be needed for incident response, but not for daily analytics, so limit access and anonymize where appropriate. Second, prioritize signals by value and latency. An HVAC temperature that updates every 15 minutes won't help a fast-moving electrical event, but power quality and UPS alarms should be near real time. Finally, use aggregation and thresholding to avoid alert fatigue. That's fine until it fails, but with proper thresholds and escalation policies, you keep the noise down and the signal visible.
Let's move from theory to examples. Michael, can you share a quick success story where telemetry saved the day and a cautionary tale where poor ownership worsened an outage?
Absolutely. Success first. At a mixed-use campus, we had a pilot that centralized UPS telemetry, remote breaker status, and elevator fault codes into a lightweight analytics dashboard. One night, the UPS reported rising internal temperature and breaker trips began on a secondary feeder. The dashboard correlated timestamps and triggered an on-call escalation. Crew arrived, swapped a failing converter, and prevented a full-floor outage. Tenants barely noticed. From an operational standpoint, that reduced mean time to restore by hours and avoided reputational damage. Contrast that with a tower where access control, HVAC, and the building management system were owned and monitored separately. A chilled water pump tripped and HVAC alarms triggered. Tenants reported comfort issues, security saw badge anomalies as people moved elevators to stairs, and every team assumed someone else had escalated. No one had a unified timeline. Contractors disputed who should push the emergency call. The result were long delays, duplicated calls, and a blame loop that cost both time and trust. The lesson, without ownership and a simple cross-system timeline, small faults become big problems.
Those are clear lessons. For listeners wondering how to start, what's a pragmatic, prioritized implementation checklist they can take into a budget or leadership conversation?
Keep it short and measurable. Step 1. Catalog. List high-value telemetry sources and owners. Keep the list to a top 10 that matter to uptime and safety. Step 2. Assign owners. Not just system owners, but a telemetry owner responsible for correlation and retention policies. Step 3. Define retention and access. What needs raw logs, what can be aggregated, and who can see personally identifying events. Step 4. Thresholds and playbooks. Decide what constitutes an alert and the escalation path. Step 5. Pilot analytics. Pick one use case, measure MTTR or tenant impact before and after, and expand if you see ROI. Start vendor agnostic. Use existing endpoints and open protocols where possible.
Can you unpack the governance piece a bit, especially for organizations worried about privacy and legal exposure?
Governance is the difference between data and usable intelligence. Define roles: data steward, system owner, and incident commander. Set access controls, anonymize badge IDs for analytics, log access events, and limit raw data to those who need it. Put retention policies in writing: short-term, high-fidelity logs for incident response, aggregated long-term metrics for trend analysis. And finally, document success metrics: reduced mean time to restore, fewer tenant complaints, or avoided outage minutes. Those metrics justify ongoing investment.
Before we wrap, let's give listeners 3 concrete actions they can take this quarter to make telemetry actionable.
1. Run a 10-minute telemetry inventory meeting with facilities, IT, and security. List the top 5 signals you use in outages. 2. Assign a telemetry owner and agree on one retention and access rule to implement this quarter. 3. Launch a 1-month pilot that correlates at least 2 data sources for a single use case, e.g. UPS alarms plus elevator faults, and measure time to resolution before and after. Those small steps make telemetry manageable and measurable.
Great. If listeners take those 3 steps, they should see measurable reductions in downtime and clearer incident timelines, and tenants will notice the difference. For more resources, including a 1-page telemetry checklist to run that inventory and pilot, visit our website. That wraps up this episode of Built, Wired, and Secured. Today, we explored how treating building telemetry as an operational asset, cataloging signals, assigning ownership, and piloting analytics improves resilience and tenant experience. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Until next time, make sure the systems you're responsible for are built to last, wired with intention, and secured for the real world.